I just sprayed it. I'm like, if it's that fresh, you know what I mean? It follows you or whatever. Bro, when I tell you, your shit followed you from, nigga, you was sitting outside, came in the car, I'm like, it's a vanilla smell. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Mark, he got his line. Nigga, then when we got in the Uber, it smelled like vanilla. It was wild. Like, the whole car smelled like vanilla,
That's that
Crown,
shit smelled good. That Crown Cynic.
That's the one I want, bro. Don't give me no other. That's the one I want, bro. I want that joint, dog.
What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to Members Only. Get the likes up from the jump, subscribe to the channel, show love. Now, it's been a minute since we took it to California, so tonight we're going to talk about an LA kingpin that is rarely mentioned. Now, the Nickerson Garden projects in the early 1960s, it was a place where poverty, racism, and gang tensions shaped young men's future before they even had a chance. Out of the concrete jungle came a figure who would later be whispered about across Los Angeles, Thomas Tootie Reese. Way before the world even knew what crack was, before cocaine became the champagne drug of the disco era, Tootie Reese was already knee-deep in the dope game. Some called him the pioneer, others say he was a curse on his own people. But what's undeniable is this: Tootie Reese became the godfather of LA cocaine. Now, by the early 1960s, Reese was already in the streets. Back then, heroin was the monster drug of choice, creeping its way through Los Angeles the same way it already destroyed cities like New York and Chicago. See, Tootie Reese saw addicts lined up in alleys, their lives crumbling for another hit. But while heroin was leaving people strung out, it was leaving Reese with pockets full of cash. He wasn't just another corner hustler. From the beginning, he thought bigger. His crew was disciplined, his operation calculated. This was a man playing chess in a city full of checkers. See, as his money grew, so did his reputation. The Colombians, who were slowly tightening their grip on America's cocaine supply, saw in Reese something rare, a black trafficker who could move serious weight in Los Angeles. They didn't just make him a client, they made him the godfather of LA. By the early 1970s, if you wanted real coke in Los Angeles, you had to go through Tootie Reese. He had 50 keys a month coming in steady. That's not street level, that's kingpin talk, heavy. And you're not a real connect if you can't supply 50. And unlike many hustlers who flashed too early, Reese built a fortress around his wealth. Real estate, jewelry, Rolls Royces. He walked around with 10 grand as his walk around money. See, in the 70s, cocaine wasn't for everybody. This was an era of Studio 54 disco, and celebrities with white powder on silver spoons. Coke was the rich man's drug, and Reese, he was the man behind the curtain supplying it. If you were a Hollywood star, an athlete, or a West Coast player with money to blow, Tootie Reese was the plug. But Reese had a vision. He didn't just want to sell powder. He wanted to make it cheaper, more accessible. So he was behind making cocaine affordable. That vision was soon unleashed something darker on the streets of America. See, Reese, he told a story once. Around 1976, he went up north to the Bay Area. A friend of his was tight with a couple of white chemistry students at the University of Berkeley. These weren't street dudes. These were smart kids who knew the science. They showed Reese something new, how to freebase, cocaine using ether. Now, the high was stronger, cleaner, but ether was expensive and dangerous. So the chemists, man, they tweaked the progress, showing Reese how to substitute baking soda. And just like that, powder cocaine became crack cocaine. See, Reese didn't invent crack, but he was one of the first men on the West Coast to introduce it. He bragged about teaching celebrities like Richard Pryor how to freebase. Pryor's infamous incident where he nearly burned himself alive. Some say that came directly from the world Tootie introduced him to. See, with the product moving fast and the money coming in just as fast, court records will later allege that Reese made $90 million in just 3 years, where he would beat the tax evasion charge. He would be getting bags full of money every other day. I'm talking 200, sometimes 300K. He was riding heavy. His 4 Rolls Royces would be seen in the neighborhood. One of them he used as a shuttle vehicle to drive to meetings and to conduct business. His real estate was worth millions. And he threw parties dripping in luxury, diamonds, champagne, fur coats. And every time he walked out his door, he had stacks of cash bulging from his pockets. See, this was the height of every American hustler's dream. See, by the late 70s, Reese wasn't just supplying Los Angeles, he was plugging major names up and down the West Coast. Even Oakland's infamous Felix Mitchell, leader of the 6ix9ine mob, was connected to Reese pipeline, mentored Mitchell, teaching him how to manage relationships with suppliers and his distributors without the benefit of contracts or legal protection of any kind. Moral of the story, Felix Mitchell learned a job. Tootie Reese created legends. This was a small fraternity of West Coast bosses, and Reese sat at the top of the table. Now, when the 1980s hit, the party was over. What was once a glamorous drug of the rich now trickled into the ghettos. Crack cocaine hit the streets like a hurricane. Suddenly, it wasn't just celebrities freebasing in Beverly Hills. It was mothers, fathers, teenagers, all trapped into the cycle of addiction. Los Angeles, already torn apart by poverty and gangs, now had a new demon. The same thing Reese once bragged about introducing became the very monster that ate his city alive. The game changed completely. The new generation of hustlers, young, wild, and tied directly to street gangs, moved in with aggression. Bloods and Crips weren't just fighting for colors anymore. They were fighting for corners, crack spots, territory, for survival. Thomas Tootie Reese, once the untouchable kingpin, was suddenly a dinosaur. His old school methods couldn't keep up with the drive-bys, the automatic weapons, and the chaos of the new crack era. In 1983, things just took a turn. The DEA closed in. Reese set up a multi-kilo deal, but this time his buyers weren't hustlers. They were undercover federal agents. He sold them 2 keys, but here's the twist. Rumor says Tootie knew they were DEA. Word is, he purposely made the sale to take heat off his own son, who had already been caught selling to the same agents. On tape, Tootie Reese bragged that most of his customers only bought 5 to 10 ounces at a time, and that he only had about 5-kilo customers. Now, that level of confidence and arrogance was his downfall. In 1984, Tootie Reese was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. The judge called him one of the best-known drug traffickers in LA history. For the black community, his name was legendary, depending on who you ask. He was either admired as a hustler that had a great run, that did his thing, or despised as a man who helped poison his people. Tootie Reese, he did his time. He was old school. He did his time without breaking the code of silence, decades behind bars. Now, for the older heads, for those who remembered the 1970 hustlers, Reese was still a story worth telling. He lived quietly when he was released until his death around 2018. Now, this was the story about Tootie Reese, the Godfather of LA cocaine, a man who made history in the shadows and proof that in the dope game, no matter how high you climb, the fall always comes. Head over to members22.com if you want to smell fresh for less. Go secure your bottle. Don't forget to hit the Patreon. Don't forget to get the likes up on this video. Show love in the comments. Check out the playlist. Check out my last couple videos. Follow me on Instagram. Y'all take care. Y'all take it easy. I'm out.